Thanks for checking out this review video. So let's do this for the sixth and final episode of the Creepshow series on Shudder. Hopefully people have been enjoying this. Overall, it has its ups and its downs for me personally, but overall, I've enjoyed it. And this episode for me was about the same, where I feel like a lot of the episodes it was this way for me personally, where I felt like one of the stories I quite enjoyed to varying degrees, and one of them I was more like, could do without it. But that's one of the wonderful things about anthologies, is that there are so many different stories. If you like one, doesn't mean you're going to like them all, or if you dislike one, it means there's plenty of other opportunities to find something you do like. And I've seen a lot of disparity with ones that people like versus don't like. A lot of people saying, like, ones that I'll say, oh, I really didn't like this one. Other people are like, really? That's my favorite one. Or vice versa, where I'm like, that one's my favorite. And other people are like, really? I hated that one the most. So that's one of the greatest things about anthologies. There's something for everyone, pretty much. So let's break into this sixth and final episode. It's sad that it's over, to be honest. So real quick shout out to Shudder for hooking me up for the screeners weekly. When this episode is coming out, it is the day that this episode is available. So there are no spoilers, because I want everyone to have the opportunity to go ahead and watch my review, but watch the show on their own and form their own opinions, basically, without spoilers. So the first story in this one is called Skin Crawlers, written by Paul Dini, who I believe, if I'm right about which Paul Dini this is, it's the guy who's an animator and comic creator who did some things like Batman and Transformers, so good pedigree with that guy. And Stephen Langford, who actually wrote a bunch of TV episodes and also wrote the script for a feature-length film called Warm-Blooded Killers, which I have not seen, don't know anything about, sorry. This one was directed by Roxanne Benjamin, who has done films like Southbound and XX, but also did the short story, or the story for one of the other episodes of Creepshow called Lydia Lane's Better Half. That's the one it was. That was one of the ones I wasn't like huge on, but the directing was good. Same thing here. The directing is really well executed in this. I really like the way that this episode in particular looked. It was good. It moved it at a nice pace too. That's one of the other things, because being short, they don't always move at the right pace. Some of them, you feel like they're moving way too slow for being super short. Some of them, it feels like they're way too choppy because they move around and jump around too much. So, but this one was good. As soon as the premise is being revealed, immediately I was like, oh no, I see where this can go wrong. Well, can go wrong and most likely will go wrong, and I was correct about how it went wrong and that it would go wrong. I mean, obviously things are going to go wrong because it's a horror show, so things have to go wrong pretty much. But it's all about to what degree. And the degree for this one was pretty fun. I enjoyed this. This was the episode of the two that I was pretty this with. So overall, it speaks to insecurities within society that many people are familiar with, myself included. I feel like this theme touches pretty much everyone, but it also speaks to a bunch of other things. It speaks to a healthy distrust of promises made by others, especially corporations, who kind of say, hey, I'm offering you this, it's amazing and the best, and you're like, what could go wrong? Some people are like, what could go wrong? Let's go. Other people are like, I'm not so sure about that. So I like those types of themes. It's played with well for this one, story-wise. I like it. It looks good, and like I said, it looks good. It has solid acting in this one. The acting is pretty decent. There's a person here or there, delivers a line here or there that's kind of meh, but for the most part, pretty solid. Enjoyed it. This one actually reminds me a little bit of a story that's in the anthology film Body Bags by John Carpenter. So it reminds me like it because the overall theme of it and a few other elements. So people who are familiar with Body Bags, if you think about that and you watch this, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll know what I'm talking about. I like the practical effects in this. Probably the most of any of the stories. The practical effects in this one, it's between this one and The Finger. I really did like the practical effects in The Finger, but this one might be my favorite, and you'll see why. There is a outstanding ending to this, practical effects wise. It's like they just throw everything. It's just like you think something's gonna happen, and it does happen. At least there was something that I was like, oh please, I hope this is what happens, because it feels like that's what should happen here. And it happened, and I was like, oh sweet. And then they one up to me in my expectations after that, and I was like, oh, I didn't expect this surprise. That was quite nice. It was very cool. So they really amped it up on that one, and I'm a fan. There's a fun gross out factor to this too, which I like those types of things, especially when it gets crazy, and it got kind of crazy. So yeah, overall, that's my assessment of this one. So doing my star rating on this particular story out of 5 stars with half stars in play, compared to all the other ones, at the moment, how am I feeling about this one? I'm going to give this one a 3.5. 3.5. Yeah, pretty good. This one gets a 3.5. I enjoyed it. It's pretty good. And then we go to the next one, which you can figure out through the powers of deduction. This was the one I wasn't too happy on, and it's pretty sad, in my opinion, that this is the one the whole series ends on. Kind of sucks, at least for me personally. I know there are probably people out there who will comment down there and say, really, this was my favorite one. And that's good. That's a great thing. This was By the Silver Water of Lake Champlain. It's adapted from a story by Joe Hill, who's done such things, such books as Horns, Nosferatu, which actually is a show on Shudder at the moment, which I've been watching through. I think I have like 2 episodes left, and I will do a review for that one. Really enjoying that show. And the comic book Lock and Key, which if nobody's read that, you have got to read that. The story with that is super cool. And the I think it's Gabriel Rodriguez does the artwork for it. Looks really good. So this story, Joe Hill's story, was adapted by Jason Cimarella, I think is how you say his name. He's adapted other Joe Hill work apparently for comic books in the past, including Thumbprint and The Cape, which I didn't know about that. So now finding that out, I kind of want to go look for these comic books just to see how those are. This one was directed by someone a lot of people know, Tom Savini, who directing credit-wise is most well known for his remake of Night of the Living the Dead, which was quite well done, to be honest, and is pretty underappreciated. But obviously he's most well known for some of his acting. He's in, Dawn of the Dead, the original Dawn of the Dead. He was in From Dusk Till Dawn by Quentin Tarantino. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but best known and appreciated for his practical effects, because he's very, very influential on that. I don't need to tell you too much about that. We love Tom Savini in the horror community. So there's a very fun tie-in at the very beginning of this that I picked up on to a John Carpenter film. Obviously, that's all I'm going to say because it's not spoilers, but look for that very cool tie-in. You'll get it. It's pretty strong, so it's hard to miss it if you've ever seen this John Carpenter film. The story plays heavily on family dynamics, which actually is something very common that Joe Hill will put in his works. Although in this instance with this story, I felt like it played way too heavily on the family dynamics. So much so that it didn't really feel like it was much of a horror story. It felt more like it was a family story with a very slight tinge of a horror element added in. And that's why I didn't really like it a whole lot. I mean, the story's not bad itself. It's just, for the series it's in, it's Creepshow. It's supposed to be horror, and I just felt like there's not nearly enough horror to this to warrant it being in there. It's just my opinion. It's pretty slow, and it feels like they kind of put some dialogue in there to actually pad the runtime, which is a very bad thing when it feels that way, when it is short to begin with. I've said that about some of the other ones that they've had in this series. So those types of things really irk me. When it feels like it's not moving at a very good pace, it's tough. Especially after I just watched one in Skin Crawlers that had very good pacing and the story really moves. It just makes it seem even tougher. There's a pretty decent payoff at the end, though. Like, there's one quick moment of a decent payoff, a good horror moment, but that's kind of it for the whole thing. It makes it seem like, from a horror standpoint, the whole thing's kind of a throwaway, unfortunately. In my opinion, once again. This is one story that the practical effects actually didn't look all that hot, which sucks. They look really fake. really fake. I think maybe it's an instance where maybe shouldn't have been as much screen time for it because of the way it actually looked, but you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. Pretty disappointed in this one. I get the story. I get it. I understand what the story is. I understand the underlying themes where they're trying to go with it, the metaphor involved with it. It's just not that entertaining. I'm sorry. It's just not that entertaining. Either it needed to be longer so they could do a lot more, have more horror elements worked into it, flesh things out a little bit more, or being shorter, they needed to, I don't know, figure something out. Maybe it just wasn't able to be adapted properly. Maybe they should have just stayed away from this story. Although it does make me interested to find out what the actual short story itself is like, because I really do appreciate Joe Hill's writing, so might check that out. So anyway, my rating for this one out of 5 stars with half stars of play. This is a tough one. Because I understand the story, the actual overall story is not that bad. I'm gonna give it a 2-star rate. Now I'm going 1.5. I'm sorry, 1.5 stars on this one. I'm just not digging it. So, okay. So it's sad to say, but that's it for Creepshow, at least for now. I have seen stories, articles saying that they've had like record viewership for their Creepshow series as far as, you know, viewers for Shudder go. So I would assume that means they're going to do a second season. I've heard a lot of people saying a lot of good things about it, but I've also heard a lot of people on the other end saying they really don't like it. But, you know, that's like anything in life. These things are very polarizing. Some people are like, I love it, I hate it. For me personally, I like it. I enjoy it. Like I've broken down in all my analysis episodes, analysis videos for the episodes, I should say. There are stories I really like. There are stories I don't really like. But that's the nature of anthology, and I'm always really excited for the surprise of it. Like, am I going to like this one or am I not going to like this one? And when you find those that you like, it makes it even that much sweeter if you've watched ones you don't like. So I love the whole anthology thing. I'm a fan of this Creepshow series. I really hope they bring it back for a second season, but I really hope that they add length to everything, which maybe they will because they might be able to get a larger budget since it was a good draw for Shudder. But anyway, I might do another video just kind of talking about the overall of Creepshow and going a little bit, do like an overall ranking, which I'll give you my final ranking. I'll just give the titles, but I might do a full video breaking down the reasons for my ranking. But here we go. My overall ranking final. Number 12, By the Silver Water of Lake Champlain. No big surprise there. Number 11, All Hallows Eve. Number 10, Lydia Lane's Better Half. Number 9, Times is Tough in Muskie Holler. Number 8, Gray Matter. Number 7, Bad Wolf Down. Number 6, Night of the Paw. Number 5, The Companion. Number 4, Skin Crawlers. Number 3, The Man in the Suitcase. Number 2, House of the Head. And number 1, The Finger. Been there for a while. Anyway, hopefully everyone enjoyed this. Go ahead and tell me what you really liked about this episode or didn't like about this episode and the show in general down in the comments. Do me a quick favor, though. Hit that subscribe because that's your way to repay me. I don't make money doing this. I'm just doing it for fun, and it'd be great to get that encouragement with a subscribe. But thanks, everyone, for checking this out, and until next time, keep it brutal.